with economic survey volume 2. Okay, so I don't think I would be taking much time of yours, so we would be try to wrap up the whole session in like 2 hours. So it would be a power packed session because I think the most conceptual part has already been dealt yesterday. Today it's more about statistics. How do you analyze those statistics? Are there some concepts involved? What are the interpretation of those statistics? So we would be dealing with all that. What my aim would be with respect to this lecture is that to help you understand how to interpret those statistics, because most of the times it happens that you start reading the survey, you went to chapter 1, state of the economy, and again you start seeing a lot of statistics, and then you find that no, I am lost, I am not able to understand what this statistics mean to me. So I think this volume 2 would be a very good exercise for you with respect to prelims 2, because all the concepts that you must have read while doing your classes, we would be covering, I won't say covering, but we would be dealing with all those concepts. So there is an implicit assumption here that you all know those concepts. Okay, only after that we can move one step forward and we can come to analyze what are the statistics which are given in economic survey. So let's say what is public debt, or what is budget deficit, what is revenue deficit, what is effective revenue deficit. So I think these all concepts you must have dealt maybe in basic economics book or wherever you have done your coachings. So we would be skipping that part that is going into the very details of what is a deficit, or like what is CPI, what is WPI. If there is something new like the government has revised CPI data or WPI, I would be talking about that what is the percentage share of, let's say, manufacturing or food articles in WPI, CPI. So that would be a kind of revision for you. But again, I won't be going into detail into the basic concepts. I won't be telling you that what is public debt. We won't be dealing that. But yeah, we will be dealing that what are the components of public debt. Okay. How much percentage is short-term borrowing, how much percentage is long-term borrowing. So that will give you an idea that whatever you have learned until now, that is whatever theoretical knowledge that you have. So you will be gaining an experience that how to use that theoretical knowledge and interpret this survey. So first I think for the first 5 minutes we will do some man ki baat, so that we would be able to understand how to proceed further with all the 9 chapters. Then I think it will take some like an hour for dealing first 7 chapters. I think you all must have seen survey before. How many of you have read it? Okay, so just let me say this too. You need to read 3 chapters minimum. Okay, maybe after this presentation you would be in a better position to understand. So please read the first chapter. It is very important. At least it will give you an overview. You could leave the technical part. I will just tell you today that how to leave all those technicalities which you don't want, which is unnecessary, which is like for economists. And then from prelims point of view, chapter 8 and chapter 9 becomes very important, especially this year chapter 8. So maybe it is IPCC's 5th assessment report, global emissions, or maybe it is India's response to various climate challenges, India's stand in international fora, or what are the domestic mechanisms that India has undertaken. So all these mechanisms, they are very well given. An analysis is also given. So 8th chapter is a must read. 9th chapter gives you an overview of government's social sector schemes. It's infrastructure, employment, human development. It will, you could find indicators here like GII, HDI, inequality adjusted HDI. So first, let's say from prelims point of view, what is important from prelims point of view is that you should be able to know each and every term of economics. Other than that, what are the new terms which are added here? Let's say GDP calculation has been revised. So now we are talking about GVA. So you don't need to go into very specifics of GVA, but you know what is GVA. You need to know that how GDP is currently calculated. So that might be a question. Or what might be a question is like percentage contribution in WPI, percentage contribution in CPI. Or let's say we are talking about IIP. Then in IIP, what are the 8 core industries? Okay, so I think there was a question in 2012 in which they simply asked, out of the 4 options, which of the options, all the 4 like 1, 2, 3, 4 were given, and then there were statements. 1 is correct, 1 or 2 is correct, and then they simply asked what are the 8 core sectors. So this type of questions could be there. Then other than that, for example, last time there was a question, if you remember, of guar gum. Okay, now though you won't find that in last year's survey, but that was in 2012-13 survey. It was very well given in the agriculture chapter that guar gum, its price has overshooted 300 to 400% because of its use in shale gas industry. So such type of linkages you could also draw from this chapter. So other than the first 8th and 9th chapter, most of the other things I would be dealing in these slides, I think they would get you very well broad outlook of what is happening there. Other than that, I will tell you the relevant pages which you need to go through so as to understand the whole concept. So let's start then. So the first thing that we need to understand is, okay, so these are the chapters that we would be dealing. First we will talk about the state of the economy, that is, we will talk about GDP, we will talk about various other indicators, how are they going. Further, I have tried to organize kind of data for you in many places, though we haven't put the data in the slides, but what I have done, just for giving one example, is that let's say there is public finance. So what I have done is that how public finance, how do you interpret that, how should you go forward, what is the structural way to go forward, how could you structure this. So just try to write this in the form of this. Receipts, expenditure, then again in receipts, tax receipts, non-tax, in tax again direct, indirect tax, then they will do non-tax, same thing, expenditure, let's say plan expenditure, non-plan expenditure. Now what are the subcomponents of non-plan expenditure? So your whole chapter of public finance would be dealt. Okay, in this only, if you try to find that what is the difference, you will get budget deficit or revenue deficit. Then you will here also, by getting a difference, will get the fiscal deficit. Then same way you could find that what the government is doing or what the government should do. Let's say when we are talking about fiscal consolidation, so how consolidation could be done? Either you need to increase the receipts or you need to decrease the expenditure. Simple concepts. So try to organize like every chapter in this type of framework. It would become very easy for you to understand the whole survey. Now you while reading the survey, you don't need to get down on so much of data. For example, for this, just see this year 2013-14 data which is available. You don't need to go back and see what is the data for 11, 12, 12, 13. Now what survey will do is that it will bring you an analysis of how it is moving with respect to this data. So that is not very much important for you with respect to UPSC perspective, because economic survey, what its original motive is to give statistics to all the economists outside the government, so that they could interpret how the economy is going. It is not for you to know and do your own statistics that how the economy is doing. So I think we should leave that to the economist, and we should come here and see how well we could organize this. This will also help you while writing answer in mains. Okay, the same way, when are you talking about monetary management, financial intermediation, just talk about RBI, talk about the banking structure, talk about narrow money, broad money. Now these concepts like narrow money, broad money, M02, M4, you just need to know what are they, what are those figures. Even interpreting them is very difficult. Okay, so if you very broadly knows what are they, then that is good enough. Okay, same thing, let's say when you are coming to external sector, you should know, you should just know about few things that will make your life a lot easier with respect to economics. Just capital account, current account, what are the features which comes under capital account, what are the features comes under current account, then total deficit, deficit, how much deficit or surplus, it becomes BOP. Now what I will be doing there is that I have made this kind of a structure for each and every slide. Okay, so some data I have put in those slides, so we would be getting an overview how these particular concepts are moving with respect to the data. Other slides somewhere I have missed something, so maybe you could go back and see how they are doing. So let us first start with GDP. So what is GDP? Anyone would like to define? No one? Within?
Within a boundary of the commission.
Within a boundary. What else? You are missing something. Over a period of time. See, that is important. In a geographical boundary and over a period of time. Okay, now there is a controversy with respect to how GDP is calculated currently. See, if the economist, if the Central Statistical Organization, if they are not very well able to explain how are they calculating GDP, then I don't think we need to dwell much deeper into how do we calculate GDP. So I will try to give you an overview that why we moved from the previous accounts to the new account, or why we change the methodology. Okay, I will just try to give you some basics on that. And on the method of calculating, that is, I will let you explain the terms, okay, what are the terms and what they mean, but we don't need to go beyond that, because whatever be the terms, they are very technical terms and they are used by chartered accountants and all while calculating the books. If you see and go and see or meet any chartered accountant friend, just ask him what those terminology means. So GDP, it is the total value of all goods and services produced within a country border in a specific time period. Now, previously we used to calculate GDP at factor cost. Okay. Now see, there is a difference between calculating GDP at factor cost and calculating GDP at market prices. Currently, what we said is that what we will call GDP is GDP at market prices. So what is GDP at market prices? What as we consumers are feeling it. Okay. What is GDP at factor cost? What the producers they are getting. Okay, so there is a difference here between production and consumption. So what an ideal GDP calculation should be? What you are getting, because the economy is for you, the economy is for consumption. Let me give one more example. Let's say WPI and CPI. Okay, WPI, wholesale price index, CPI, consumer price index. Now global crude prices, they have came down from, let's say, $110 per barrel to $40 per barrel. Okay, so what happened is that WPI, it went to negative, whereas CPI still was at positive, like 5%. So there's a difference in 6% of a change in a commodity. Now how do we explain this? Are you getting my point? Sorry? Who is getting it? Who is getting that subsidy? Either the change in commodity prices in international market, is it passed to you, the consumer, or not? Or the government increased taxes and thereby only a certain part of that has been given to you. Okay, so that is the difference. That is why every economist, if you read Arvind Panagriha or Jagdish Bhagwati, they say that what is wrong in India is with respect to the office of CSO. They don't know how to calculate GDP. Okay, so there was wide controversy that how overnight by just changing some statistics, India became one of the fastest, again, it became one of the fastest growing economies. So this is how it is calculated throughout the world, in most of the countries of the world. So what we are calculating is the value that the consumer enjoy, not the value that the producers are consuming. If you want to go a bit more deep than what is the method of like GDP calculating at factor cost, it was more of a Nehruvian legacy which we gained from the Soviet Union, where we wanted to see that as an indicator of how the market is performing. We wanted to look at from the perspective of producers, that how much tonnage we are getting, how much our factories are producing. We will say that that is what is GDP. But that is a wrong sense. A wrong sense in the way that it should be the consumer. It should be the final product that the consumer is getting is what should be the GDP. It's what should be an indicator how the economy is functioning. That is why you could also relate to, let's say RBI talked about that it will take CPI as the nominal anchor for conducting its monetary policy. Why CPI? Why not WPI? This is the change. So let's just look here. Headline growth rate will now be measured by GDP at market prices instead of factor cost. Earlier it was measured in terms of GDP at factor cost at constant prices. Now see, when you are calculating the GDP, you need to know here two things. First, what is the base year that we are taking? 2011 and 12. So base year is required so that you could find how the GDP is doing with respect to a particular index. Now what we are doing is that we are calculating GVA at factor cost, then GVA at basic prices, and then aggregating it to get to GDP. Here these are the terms, three terms that you need to understand. Very easy, not going too deep, nothing. Compensation of employees. Now this is one thing. Now you could simply write wages, but what is difference between wages and compensation of employees? Here in compensation of employees, you need you tend to add the social security benefits that the employer is adding to your salary. Now we don't need to get into details of that how much it is adding, or let's say the employee is adding 100 rupees and the employer is adding 100 rupees. That is how provident fund works. Okay, but that works over a period of time, that we need to calculate over a period of time how much, and then every year how much it is getting. So that is a lot of statistics. So we simply need to know that compensation of employees, what we mean, what are the wages plus social security benefits provided by the employer. Now let's come to this third term, consumption of fixed capital. Again, you could have written fixed capital, but what is this new terminology, consumption of fixed capital? So it is just depreciation but at current prices. So one thing is depreciation at the original price, कि मान लो सन 2000 पे आपने गाड़ी खरीदी होगी मारुति 800, और if you calculate अभी उसकी cost कितनी है, तो what you will do, you will calculate depreciation from that point, कि वहाँ से अभी तक कितना क्या हो गया है. बट अगर आपको CFC निकालना है, that is consumption of fixed capital, तो आप क्या करोगे, अभी उसकी प्राइस निकाल लोगे कितनी है, आप फिर बोल दोगे कि भैया यही है. फिर थर्ड टर्म, दिस इज समथिंग विच इज न्यू. ओके, it has been incorporated keeping in view that India has got a huge informal economy. So how to account for that informal economy section? So one thing is operating surplus. This is like for the formal economy. So if there is any company, then very well from the company, like you have MCA 21, the ministry's software, where every company's data is uploaded. So in every company's book accounts, you could find this term, operating surplus, that how much profit the company is generating. Okay, so that is one way of seeing it. But let's say there is an informal, you could say informal छोटा कोई एक छोटी सी दुकान है where there is no operating surplus. So how do you calculate that? So thereby they came with a concept that we should use that whatever be there, mixed income. I don't know into much detail how they will be calculating this term mixed income. It is not yet very well given in the literature that I tried to Google. But this is what was my basic understanding, that कि जितने भी जो informal sector होंगे which we are trying to bring forward in the GDP calculation, जिसमें it is very difficult to find what is the wages, what is the profit percentage. ठीक है, तो हम क्या बोल देंगे कि ये उसका फिक्स्ड कैपिटल हटा के जो भी जितना वो काम कर रहा है उसका हम उसकी मिक्स्ड इनकम बोल देंगे. ठीक है, अदर देन दैट आई थिंक ये तो आपको क्लियर होगा कि भाई फैक्टर कॉस्ट पे हमें पता चल गया कि फैक्टर कॉस्ट ये 3 है. फैक्टर कॉस्ट से आप बेसिक प्राइसेस पे कैसे जाओगे, प्लस प्रोडक्शन टैक्सेस माइनस प्रोडक्शन सब्सिडीज, उससे फिर आपको जीडीपी पे आना है. सेम थिंग जो पुरानी जीडीपी कैलकुलेशन में हम करते थे, इट्स द सेम थिंग. जीडीपी फिर यू शुड हैव एन एग्रीगेट ऑफ जीवीए एट बेसिक प्राइसेस प्लस प्रोडक्ट टैक्स माइनस प्रोडक्ट सब्सिडीज. नाउ द सेकंड पॉइंट दैट इज इंपॉर्टेंट इन दिस इज दैट वी आर फॉलोइंग हियर अ सेक्टोरल अप्रोच. What do you mean by a sectoral approach is that we are taking the data from a number of government websites, like we are taking the data from MCA 21, Ministry of Corporate Affairs website. Here what will be happening is that MCA 21, every sector data would be there, so you could directly take this data sectorally. That is why you are aggregating GVA at basic prices and calculating it in a sectoral format. Further, when we go forward, we will see that how it is impacting each and every sector, how it is impacting the agriculture and allied sector, how it is impacting the industrial sectors, how it is impacting the services sector. Other than that, we would be taking data from pension funds, mutual funds, SEBI, IRDA. So I think that is the basics of GDP calculation that I think I could tell you all. Maybe
Which approach we are taking, like income approach, or that is also changed?
see again while this is a new approach, now how would you define this? One way is that you could say that okay, this is the income approach. In income approach also we used to find the factors of production. So this is one way you could use that approach, that you could say that in the in income method there were let's say four factors of production: land, labor, capital and entrepreneur. Then from land comes rent, labor comes wages, capital, interest, and entrepreneur comes the profit. Now you could align those three statistics with respect to this sense too. So that is one way of understanding. But what I would advise is just try to see it is a simple measure of calculating GDP at the market prices. That is, what are you consuming? How can you directly get through this? It's just simple that what is the wages that you are getting, compensation of employer, how much surplus your company is having, OSMI, and then what is the fixed capital. Just three terms, understand those three terms. If we again go into the details of like this three approach of GDP calculation, I think you all might have read in your coachings: income approach, expenditure approach, production approach. So you could relate them, but again that is not a direct one-to-one correlation. Okay? From an understanding point of view, you could relate this. Other than that, with respect to this calculations, see the share of, you could see that from the 2004-5 series and 11-12 series, how the shares have been changed. Let me also tell you that the website, the PPT is uploaded in the website, so you need not take down all the data and everything, so that would be provided to you. So maybe you could download right now if you want, or if you have survey, then you could see it is taken from the survey only. So this is just giving you some indicators how the contribution of various sectors have changed with respect to the change in GDP. Like services was 56.1, it changed into 49.6. Agriculture and allied activities 17.9 to 18.7. Industry 26.1 to 31.7. Now here the point is that how do you validate this data? So whenever there is a change in the base rate, whenever there is a change in the base, so what generally tends to happen is that the CSO, it comes out with a detailed data of the current years and then extrapolate it backwards. So currently CSO has not given data for the backward years. So until and unless that data is available, economists won't be able to compare this series with what happened before. So I think by November or December they would be coming out with this data. After that only you could analyze whether these figures which are given, whether they are accurate or not, whether they are giving the true picture or not. Because for example, let's say with respect to the current GDP calculations, we are seeing that the economy is booming. It is growing at 6.3%, 6.4%. But that is not the same indicator which we are getting from other indicators. Let's say IIP. IIP is not moving that up. Manufacturing is sluggish. But here what we are seeing, manufacturing is growing at a high rate, 4 to 5% of it. Okay, so that's why many of the economists are complaining that until and unless data is provided by the CSO or it comes out with an explanation what is happening, it would be difficult to point out, it would be difficult to compare this scenario. I think in last class which happened yesterday, Jatin sir might have talked about these things, because if you want to read about these things, this is given in volume 1 first chapter. Okay, in volume 1 first chapter, the economic advisor, it talks about these things. He very well acknowledges this fact that he still is not able to understand why that is happening. Okay, so maybe before dwelling too much deep, we need to wait and see what is coming out, especially from a UPSC perspective. Other than that, let's just understand it once more. So what is the percentage contribution of every individual, that is either compensation to employees or OSNMI or CFC to GVA for every sector? Then what is the GVA share of the sector, and then what is its employment share? So this might be important for you from prelim perspective, because this is like the most aggregate data that you could get. So if you are good at learning data, then I think this is the only thing that you should learn. This will help you in writing a lot of answers, not only in I think mains paper 3. So if there's a question on like what is the employment share, then you could say कि employment share इतना है, compensation इतना मिल रहा है, companies का operating surplus इतना चल रहा है. This is in the agriculture and allied fields. Industry में हर एक sector में क्या हो रहा है. Service sector में 4 components. Trade, hotels and restaurants. This is the maximum employment generating sector in the service sector. So see, these are the type of data that you should know. आप समझ रहे हो? एक चीज तो ये है कि यार ये आप इतना सारा डेटा देखा और बोला आपकी नहीं हो पाएगा, बस अब छोड़ देते हैं. Second thing is that कि whatever be the data, for example, let's say direct tax or indirect tax, just see what is the first point, that whose contribution in direct tax is maximum. Or let's say India's import and export, just see which is the first and second country in which India exports the highest share, or the first and second for the lowest for the highest sector of export and highest sector of import. ठीक है, उतने में काम चल जाएगा for prelims and even mains too, क्योंकि उससे ज़्यादा I don't think UPSC उससे ज़्यादा पूछता है. और अभी तक I think if we see the trend of the question in the last 3 or 4 years, UPSC या तो economics में conceptual questions पूछ रहा है, या फिर इस टाइप के थोड़े बहुत क्वेश्चन की, मान लो CPI है, CPI में भाई क्या क्या है, इसके 3 सेक्टर बताओ, उनके परसेंटेज कंट्रीब्यूशन बताओ, उसमें मल्टीपल चॉइस बन जाएंगे. या फिर WPI में मल्टीपल चॉइस बन जाएंगे, या फिर आपसे वो एक्सटर्नल डेप्थ के कंपोनेंट पूछ लेगा, एक्सटर्नल डेप्थ के क्या क्या कंपोनेंट होते हैं, या फिर काफ़ी कॉमन क्वेश्चन होते हैं आपके करंट अकाउंट डेफिसिट, इसके कंपोनेंट्स क्या होते हैं, FII FPI में या फिर FII और FDI में डिफरेंस क्या है, ठीक है। तो इससे आगे बढ़ना थोड़ा मुश्किल होता है यूपीएससी के लिए, स्पेशली विद प्रीलिम्स पर्सपेक्टिव। सो अभी भी whenever we will be moving to all these chapters, just try to focus on this, and if you won't if you are not able to find anything, just let me know. So here let's just see agriculture and allied sector. The employment share is 48.9%, industry 24.3%, service sector 26.9%. Percentage contribution, just see how the percentage contribution change. That is something which might be asked, sorry. Other than that, if you want to get an idea how every individual is contributing to the overall GVA, then this is one thing. That is, in agriculture and allied sector, this is the mixed income might be the main factor. Because what is compensation to employer? Most of the agriculture, they are in sustenance level. Okay, they do not have employees. Then who would they pay? They do their own farming. Trade, hotels and restaurants. Is there any other trend? I think this is just to give you a picture how this statistics with respect to GDP calculation would be working. Now I think this we already saw. Now let's come to the next topic. Other than that, when you will read survey chapter 1, it very well gives an overview of the chapter for public finance, monetary development, external sector, international trade, BOP, external depth, outlook and sectoral development. So that will give you a gist of all the coming chapters. So by just reading this chapter and I think undergoing what we are doing here, you may be able to complete first 6 chapters. But again, there is a may attached, so if you have time you could read all of them. So I think let's move to the next chapter, public finance. So in public finance we need to see that how things are moving with respect to the government. See, this one diagram, it summarizes the whole of public finance. Okay, so you got a revision of whatever you did in your classes. Very simple, just see public finance with respect to the government of India. What are the receipts? What are the expenditure? Okay, what would be the revenue receipts? Tax, non-tax, then tax, direct, indirect, user charges, dividends. What would be the capital receipts? Debt creating capital receipts, that is the borrowings of the government, or non-debt creating capital receipts, that is the disinvestment proceeds or the interest that they are generating. So you very well know the, what do you understand by this capital? Na? Anything which creates an asset or liability with respect to the government. Then expenditure, again, either you could say this with respect to like revenue receipts, revenue expenditure and capital expenditure, or how the survey has given it with respect to plan estimates and non-plan estimates. In non-plan estimates, what are the major components? So this is what you should know, like when you are talking about non-plan, how much percentage of the non-plan is subsidies. Then in the subsidies component, which is the first component for subsidies, highest percentage of subsidy, second highest, third highest. So there is a chart which is given in survey. Okay, you could refer to that chart where you would be getting the subsidies component. Other than that, I think in yesterday's class also the subsidies thing would have been delivered nicely, because in the second or third chapter of volume 1, this case has very well been taken, that how subsidies they are creating distortions in the market. Yeah, sure. That would be, the second would be fertilizer. This would be fertilizer.
Sir, are they still going by the differentiation of plan and non-plan?
No. After the C. Rangarajan committee report, which said that we don't need to follow this plan and non-plan thing.
But we are still following the
See, that is an informal way of understanding it. Survey gives by plan and non-plan. It says that plan expenditure is and non-plan is. So you could.
But we are still following the 12 5-year plan, right? So by that standard, yes, non-plan should be evolved. But maybe 2017 onwards.
Maybe we could say, see again, this is just one way of understanding how your expenditure is going. What survey gives in its table, if you see, it writes like this: capital expenditure, revenue expenditure, then it will write A, plan expenditure, B, non-plan expenditure. The basic here is that you need to understand that what is plan estimates and how non-plan estimates work. Okay, the same thing goes with like revenue expenditure or capital expenditure. If you are clear with this thing, then I think you won't be confusing in plan and non-plan estimates. Okay. So this is, I think, the whole chart which will summarize the whole of public finance. The difference between the two, you will get the fiscal deficit. Now from fiscal deficit, we will come to concepts like fiscal consolidation, how fiscal consolidation would be done. Okay, so if you see the trends, okay, so this is one of the overview with respect to data, if you could say. So I tried to inculcate some of the data so that it would give you a, if you have survey with you, you could refer to table 2.8. Okay, so not to worry much, you don't need to mug up this data, nothing. You just need to see that how they are changing, or what are the percentage component of each and everything. What is the percentage component of tax, non-tax. So nearly they are in the ratio of like 45 to 55. So in India, tax is more than the non-tax, that is obvious, that is obvious, tax is more than non-tax. In direct versus indirect, you need to see which one is more. Tax revenue. I think that should have been given in the appendix. But nearly what happens is that generally currently यही है कि direct and indirect, direct is nearly 55% and indirect is nearly 45%. And since the service tax mobilization, it is increasing on a day by day basis, thereby this indirect tax is also increasing, and they are catching up, nearly coming to 50%. And what we say is that once we will implement GST, which should be an indirect tax reform, okay, the percentage will increase significantly. Other than that, in this chapter of public finance, there is a column given for GST. I think I don't need to go through GST. There is box 2.2 which talks about GST. I think there are a lot of articles in the newspaper and debates also, so you all might be knowing the nitty-gritties of GST. There was already a question in last year mains on GST. So though a bit difficult to come in prelims, but maybe you don't know, so maybe just go through box 2.2. That will make you understand what is GST. So this is the total, you could say, way you could summarize this. You could summarize the subsidies. Let's say food subsidy 1,15,000 crore, fertilizer subsidy 72,000 crore, petroleum subsidy 63,000 crore. This decreased because of the decrease in crude prices. Now here only let us understand, if we need to do fiscal consolidation, okay, for doing fiscal consolidation, what we need to do, either we need to increase this, that is revenue mobilization, or we need to decrease this expenditure. Now this non-planned expenditure, it is very difficult to decrease. Pension would be in any case same. Defense budget, you don't have much cushion to go here and there. So whatever the if we see the trends of last 2 or 3 years, what the central government does is that it decreases the plan expenditure, that is the capital expenditure. Maybe in this budget too, you also might have heard that there is a 30% cut in the social sector, this much percentage cut in this sector. So what is that? That is a way to bring the deficit to the target of 4.1%, because here you are not able to mobilize enough revenue, you are not able to increase the tax base, neither you are able to increase the collection of revenue. So thereby somehow you have to meet the target. That is what government said, we will meet the target of 4.1%. In the last year and last to last year also, fiscal consolidation was one of the top priority. So last 2 years the government simply did this, they decreased the expenditure part, and thereby fiscal consolidation was done. So other than that, what the survey talks about is that what are the reforms that we could bring forward with respect to fiscal consolidation. Again जब यहाँ reforms की बात होगी, तो what we need reforms, how to mobilize more revenue, or how to prune these subsidies. So how to mobilize more revenue? One thing which everyone and always talks about is widening of tax base, that is bringing more and more things under the tax structure. Or then we talk about GST, which will increase revenue mobilization. Or we talked about direct tax, bringing a DTC, direct tax code, which will increase the revenue mobilization. Or here we talk about dividends, or we said that we will go for disinvestment. So this was one of the main strategy of the government to mobilize revenue. If you might have heard a lot in the news that government is trying to divest its stake in many of the public sector undertakings. This is complemented by SEBI norms. What SEBI said is that 25% of any public sector undertaking shares should be with the public. Okay, now many or most of the major public sector undertaking, nearly let's say 80 or 85% of shares are with the government. So they have to compulsorily offload those shares in the share market. Thereby government would be generating some disinvestment, which will again help in fiscal consolidation. Or what could be the third method? What the government did, let's say the crude prices went very down, it went from $110 per barrel to like $40 per barrel. What it did, it increased the excise tax. In the name of carbon tax, what is government doing? See, there's no carbon tax. Ask them if they care for the carbon. No, nobody cares. So this is just a way. मतलब 10 रुपए आएंगे तो आपको 1 ही रुपया मिलेगा. मतलब ऐसा नहीं हो सकता कि they will be giving you 5 and keeping 5. So what they did, they increased this indirect component of tax. So the government would be mobilizing money to the amount of 60 to 70,000 crore just by increasing the excise duty on petrol and diesel. Okay, so these are some of the things that the government does for this fiscal consolidation technique, and these are the 3-4 things that survey talks about.
Sir,
Yeah.
So you said that because of the lesser leverage in non-plan expenditure, plan expenditure was reduced to contain fiscal deficit. But when there's a private investment is not coming and the growth is not moving as it ought to be, so in that case should be, reduce plan expenditure at the cost of fiscal deficit or the other way around?
Let's say you reduced the planned expenditure in health sector. Who will care? The private companies, they won't care. Okay, or let's say you decreased the percentage in education. So this is what the government does. Other than that, if the government decreases expenditure in the plan segment with respect to infrastructure, okay, then that will lead to a vicious circle. There's a decrease in infrastructure, thereby there's a decrease in demand. Once there's a decrease in demand, market sentiments come down, investors, they won't invest, and again there will be a cycle coming. Okay, so whenever you find that there is a decrease in the expenditure by the government will try to decrease in expenditure in those sectors which does not have a direct impact on the private companies, or let's say on the industries. Okay.
So, the GST law, there is a statement, could be zero rated.
Sorry?
Cost could be zero rated. 30. GST law.
They won't be taxed by both the central and the states.
So, that is only. What could be zero rated? What would be the tax?
The point number 13, exports would be zero rated. I don't know. Maybe they must be talking about the custom. I don't know. Maybe I will just confirm and get back to you after the class.
Sir,
Yeah.
coming back to my question, what I was trying to ask is that we should focus more on revenue deficit and not on fiscal deficit, because public investment has to come.
That is obvious. That is what every economist talks about. That is the expenses, the administrative expenses, or the expenses on like let's say defense, or what is like in administrative nature, or what is recurring in nature. You should prune that expenses. You should increase the administrative efficiency. That is what should be done. Thereby we had the concept of revenue deficit and effective revenue deficit. Effective revenue deficit mainly tells you that leaving the capital expenditure apart, that is the percentage of spending which is taken to increase the capital assets. What is the effective revenue deficit? What is the deficit? So if you go back and look at the FRBM Act which came in 2003, the FRBM Act talks that revenue deficit should be 0 by 7-8. But that did not happen because of the global economic crisis, and after that again the government went on a spending spree. So now also whenever we talk about fiscal consolidation, we tend to focus more on this part, that the revenue deficit should be minimum.
So in the disinvestment part, the NIAC committee also had given some recommendation regarding disholding of public. So we need to give.
No. That is maybe who are the students of ProBat, they need that. What are the recommendations of NIAC committee on disinvestment? So moving forward, let's say the deficit part. So you should, I think you very well are able to understand what is the budget deficit, fiscal deficit, revenue deficit. So there's a chart which I just copied from survey, which gives you the data. So these are the trends if you need to follow. Where it talks about how the primary deficit is moving, where is the revenue deficit and where is the fiscal deficit. Okay, I think this part we already dealt with. This is important, especially with respect to mains, that how fiscal consolidation should be done. So, for example, excise duty, it was increased, disinvestment proceed, then spectrum and coal allocation. Government hopes up to mobilize revenue. Then with respect to expenditure, the government constituted an expenditure commission to see or find out or get recommendations how they could improve on this front, how they could prune those expenditures that I think you were talking about. Okay, then comes government's depth. कि भाई गवर्नमेंट की डेप्थ कितनी है, उसमें से इंटरनल लायबिलिटीज कितनी है, एक्सटर्नल लायबिलिटी कितनी है. नाउ इफ यू सी द दिस, आई थिंक ये आपने पढ़ा होगा कि दिस अदर इंटरनल लायबिलिटीज क्या होता है. कैन एनीवन टेल मी? Page 37. What do you understand by this other internal liabilities? Sorry? Yeah. Short-term savings, provident fund. So this all comes under other internal liabilities. So here, what we need to understand, or what is a important thing, is that see the percentage of internal versus external debt. So if there is a question in prelims that what is the first thing that the government does if it needs to mobilize revenue, then it won't go to a foreign market. First it will try to mobilize the revenue internally. It will go for an external debt only in those circumstances. Let's say World Bank is giving something. World Bank would be giving in very low rates of interest. Thereby we would be taking that would be a priority. Or other than that, government will resort to either market borrowings or doing some other stuffs. So here, let's say this is coming 37.1, total of this is 46.9, and this is just a minuscule 1.5. So this the survey says that the debt policy emphasizes maintaining a long-term and sustainable debt structure at lowest possible cost and is progressively resorting to market-oriented active debt management. So here only the other thing that you might be currently hearing in news is a public debt management office. That what the government is trying to say, that we will take the debt. Currently the government's debt, it is managed by RBI. The government is saying that we need to make a different new body which will take care of our own debts. Okay, so Raghuram Rajan was one who in his commission 2000 formed I think 2007 or 8, he talked about debt management commission. He said that there should be one, but now he is saying that in India there should not be one at the current juncture, because what is here important is that what is the independence or how independent is this PDMO. This is very important. If it is not independent, then what will happen is that RBI has no powers. Government for any populist measures, it will have its own member here. It will again went for a spending spree. So that is what RBI is saying. RBI is saying that first ensure what is happening here. What is its structure? What is its accountability mechanism? How independent? Then RBI again is saying is that in a market like India, okay, government debt has a very important implication on how the monetary market is moving. If this PDMO manages debt in such a way that it takes a lot of money out of the market, then it would be very difficult for the RBI to bring back liquidity in the market. Thereby RBI is saying is that until and unless the economy stabilizes, like what happens in developed economies, you could have a debt management office. So अभी फिलहाल हमारे पास ही रहने दो, सब सही चल रहा है, क्यों एक नई बॉडी आप बनाने की कोशिश कर रहे हो? So this is like the whole debate which is currently in news. So this might be important, I don't know, but yeah, I think very important with respect to mains perspective. Prelims I think a bit difficult कि कोई question आ सकता है. Other than that, the first chapter it talks about performance of departmental enterprises, that you could skip. Okay, now let's move to the next chapter. I think we would be going a bit more fast. एक chapter पे 1 घंटा लगा तो we will be
So ECBs form part of external debt.
yeah, external debts. We will be coming to that. There is a more slide where we will be taking how much percentage of ECB is in total debt. NRI deposits is also external debt. Okay, then monetary management, financial intermediation. In this chapter, you don't need to look for much. Just see how the government is functioning, how the banks are functioning. You must have heard a lot about NPAs nowadays, and you must have heard that NPAs or stressed assets of the bank. Okay, a lot of assets of the bank, they are stressed. NPA is increasing. The RBI is saying ki do something, but there is nothing which could be done. So here, the important thing is, what are the policy rates of RBI? So every time UPSC tends to ask a question, what is bank rate, what is repo, what is reverse repo, what is CRR, SLR. So please, I think I won't be delving into these topics, but I think you all know very well what are all these topics. So what was the only point that I need to say is that if the government reduces SLR, that is a big thing. Then measures of money supply. Here in measures of money supply, you must know, I think ये आपने पढ़ाई होगा reserve money क्या होता है, broad money क्या होता है, ठीक है? तो ये एक बार देख लीजिएगा. सर्वे क्या बोलता है कि during 2014-15 both reserve money and broad money deaccelerated compared to the previous year. Now you don't need to go into the specific why deaccelerated, what were the factors that act in conjunction or opposition which led to this. अगर आपको फ्रीव्यूज पे जाना है तो पेज नंबर 39 and 40 it gives you the details, but I don't think that is important, so I would be skipping that part. इसके बाद let's come to this performance of scheduled banks, scheduled commercial banks. Here you need to know about something. I think this though you will be knowing. I just bought it so that we could relate it. Currently it is 13.2 CRAR, also you must known as capital adequacy ratio. Okay, it is currently 13.2%, whereas the Basel norms says, you must have heard about this Basel norms. So that says it should be 9% for 2015, and if you are following whatever is happening in the current news, the bank needs money, it needs capitalization for what? For increased. We are moving to Basel 3 norms. So Basel 3 norms, this part would be increasing, CRAR, capital adequacy ratio. Thereby assets needs to be increased. Then let's talk about NPA. So what is an NPA? So can anyone define? 90 days. So it was 4.5%. These are all data from survey only. So you just need to know very broad so that कभी आप कोई आंसर लिख रहे हो तो आपको दिक्कत ना. Other than that, what you could do is that कि see whatever things I am telling, just try to relate them with whatever you are reading in the newspapers. So that will give you a very broad or good understanding of what is happening. Actually, you would be able to relate whenever we talk about NP, or let's say whenever we talk about stressed assets. So stressed assets, it's like 12.5% of total GNPA. Now from here only, let's come to this part also. What are the sectors in which the NPA is highest? Okay, we are hearing a lot, okay, there is NPA, there is NPA, there is NPA, but in which sector? What are the assets, or what are the companies, or what are the sectors which are not paying its loan, and why? That is the broad question. So here if you look what survey talks about, it talks about these 5 sectors in which infrastructure is one of the prominent sectors, iron and steel is one of the 2 prominent sectors, mining and including coal, then aviation and textiles. I think these 3 sectors you all very well know. You all very well know and can relate why they are creating NPA. Let's say in infrastructure there is any road project, no clearance, nothing happening. Okay, so what is happening? is that the companies, they are not able to generate revenues out of whatever infrastructure that they have made. Thereby they are not able to pay the loans because companies के पास खुद से तो पैसा होता नहीं है भाई, बैंक ही तो फाइनेंस करता है. तो जब कंपनी के पास पैसा आ ही नहीं रहा जो रोड उसने बनाई है उसको लेके, तो देन इट विल बी एन एनपीए. सेम माइनिंग एंड कोल, जितने लाइसेंसेस से चले गए, कभी सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने बोल दिया यहाँ माइनिंग रोक दो भाई, अब जिस कंपनी ने पैसा लगाया उसके तो गए. सो व्हाट नाउ इज दैट कि ये तो चलो हो गया, अब इसके बाद क्या हो रहा है. वन, RBI is looking at this NPAs and RBI is telling to banks what they should do with respect to NPA. ठीक है. सेकेंड पार्ट इज what the government is doing with respect to these sectors. ठीक है. तो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में NPA घटाने के लिए गवर्नमेंट ने क्या बोला, टेक आउट फाइनेंसिंग करते हैं. टेक आउट फाइनेंसिंग कैसे करेंगे, पहले 5 साल बैंक में रखते हैं, उसके बाद फिर एक नया फंड बना देते हैं, उसके बुक्स में उसको शिफ्ट कर देंगे. आयरन एंड स्टील के केस में क्या करते हैं, लोन रिस्ट्रक्चर कर देते हैं, गारंटी दे देते हैं. ठीक है. सो गवर्नमेंट इज टेकिंग मेजर्स विद रिस्पेक्ट टू द सेक्टर्स, गिविंग फास्ट क्लियरेंसेस. You might have heard like 2 days before the environment minister clearing like number of cases in just a single day. ठीक है. So all that will include in this thing only, that is whatever you call that the ease of doing business or getting increased clearances. ठीक है. तो वो that will help in restructuring this NPA, reducing NPA.
रीस्ट्रक्चर कैसे करेंगे?
नहीं, वही reducing NPA, not restructure. Then comes financial inclusion and Jan Dhan Yojana. I think Jan Dhan तो सबको पता ही होगा, so I should skip or I should just tell 2 or 3 points very quick. 3 objectives: universal access to banking for at least 1 member for every household. ठीक है. Second was financial literacy. Third is if you want this slide, I think this is there, you could just get it. There's a RuPay debit card with 1 lakh account insurance. This I think that is more than enough discussed. There is no dhan without Jan Dhan. किसने खुलवाया क्या अकाउंट यहाँ? Okay, so these are the initiatives which are I broadly try to project in one slide so that it does not become too power packed and with all the datas. You just need to get a very broad idea about all these sectors. What are the initiatives taken by the RBI and government? Guidelines to banks regarding NPAs के NPA restructure कैसे करना है, asset construction company उनको क्या बोलना है, पहले से कंपनीज को मॉनिटर करना है कि कौन पे नहीं कर रहा, पे कर रहा है, तो आरबीआई उसके रिगार्डिंग गाइडलाइंस दे रही है. फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी इन प्रोजेक्ट लोन्स टू इंफ्रा एंड कोर इंडस्ट्रियल प्रोजेक्ट्स, टाइटन नॉर्म्स फॉर ARC, दैट इज एसेट रिकंस्ट्रक्शन कंपनी. फिर उसके बाद ये सिक्योरिटीज मार्केट, फिर इंश्योरेंस मार्केट में क्या हो रहा है, पेंशन मार्केट में क्या हो रहा है. हियर दिस टू आर इम्पॉर्टेंट बिकॉज इंश्योरेंस में द गवर्नमेंट ब्रॉट रिसेंटली एन ऑर्डिनेंस for increasing the insurance FDI insurance sector to how much percentage? 49%. So these are some of the statistics that in 2000 it was 2.3%. Currently the penetration is 3.9%. So whenever like there is a question on insurance, let's say in mains, you could start introduce by just giving this very fact. The examiner would be very much impressed that at least you know what is the current situation on the ground. Then how the insurance sector is growing. Who is leading the insurance sector? In India, the public sector companies, they are leading. LIC is one of the major companies and LIC is known all over the world for its settlement. वर्ल्ड में सबसे ज़्यादा सेटलमेंट LIC ही करता है. ठीक है, तो सर्वे में इतना ही दिया इंश्योरेंस के बारे में. देन यू कुड डिबेट वेरी वेल कि द परसेंटेज FDI दैट इज अलाउड, विल इट लीड टू मोर पेनिट्रेशन और नॉट. व्हाट जनरली आर्ग्यूमेंट्स इन फेवर से दैट with increased money, the insurance companies, they would be able to bring more products in the market, thereby their outreach could be increased, thereby the government said let's increase the FDI. Then pension is again important. NPS, what is NPS? National Pension System.
New pension system.
New pension system. It is very important to understand the difference here. This is a whole system created by the government. Under this there are schemes. Schemes कैसी हैं आपने सुना होगा NPS Lite started in 2004. मतलब why do you think that the government moved to this NPS? Does anyone of you tend to analyze? Can anyone give me a reason?
More government employees.
Yeah, unorganized sector there is that is secondary. That came you could say that was not the original motive of bringing this national new pension system. See what happens is that ना कि अचानक से गवर्नमेंट को लगता है कि यार 60 साल हो गए, चलो अब तो इनको पैसे देने पड़ेंगे. Once a government employee he reaches 60 years, after that he gets the pension. ठीक है, तो गवर्नमेंट ने बोला कि पहले तो वो कहीं से कंट्रीब्यूशन आता नहीं है, तो let them do their own contribution. Thereby it moves to a new pension system कि जो गवर्नमेंट का एम्प्लॉय है वो हर साल से खुद ही इस पे कुछ पैसे डालेगा. उसके बाद फिर उसने बोला कि चलो भाई गवर्नमेंट एम्प्लॉय आ गए, अब इनफॉर्मल सेक्टर को भी ले आओ. फिर 2009 में बोला कि कोई भी सिटीजन, एनी सिटीजन ऑफ इंडिया, इफ यू वांट्स टू इन्वेस्ट, इट कुड इन्वेस्ट इन द पेंशन सिस्टम. So this is the name of the scheme that the government gave Valamban. And for management of these funds, which would be in the tunes of like 50 to 70,000 crores, government came out with the authority, PFRDA.
So 3 new schemes need to be started.
पेंशन में
Atal pension योजना.
अच्छा हाँ, वो स्कीम से अटल पेंशन योजना और
प्रधानमंत्री जीवन ज्योति.
जीवन ज्योति योजना. एंड थर्ड वन, सो अटल पेंशन योजना इज वन, प्रधानमंत्री सुरक्षा बीमा योजना. सो एटलीस्ट डू दिस थिंग कि जितनी भी गवर्नमेंट की स्कीम्स है वो प्लीज पढ़ लेना, बिकॉज आई थिंक यू माइट एक्सपेक्ट 2 or 3 क्वेश्चंस, क्योंकि ज़्यादा स्कीम्स आई नहीं है, 1 साल हुआ है. आई थिंक 10 से 12 से 13 स्कीम्स आई होंगी, जिसमें भी यू नीड टू अगेन मेक अ डायग्राम एंड ओनली और लेट्स से स्ट्रक्चर इट विद रिस्पेक्ट टू 3-4 पॉइंट्स कि हर स्कीम जो है उसका ऑब्जेक्टिव क्या है, टारगेट ऑडियंस कौन है, कौन सी मिनिस्ट्री वो स्कीम को लेके आ रही है. लेट मी आस्क जस्ट यू वन क्वेश्चन, बेटी बचाओ बेटी पढ़ाओ, विच मिनिस्ट्री? and women and child development, HRD, and what is the third? Ministry of Health. Okay, so just do this thing na, for everything. What are the objectives, target audience, let's say ministry, कौन से ministry करा रही है, and salient features जो कि 2 या 3 ही होते हैं बस. इतने में स्कीम्स खत्म हो जाती है, स्पेशली फ्रॉम अ प्रीलिम्स पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू. सो इट वोंट टेक यू मोर देन लाइक 2 hours. जस्ट सेट गूगल, गो टू द मिनिस्ट्री वेबसाइट, और इफ देयर इज एनी नोट्स इन द मार्केट जस्ट गो टेक द नोट्स और काम करके खत्म करो, बिकॉज 2-3 क्वेश्चन हमेशा आ ही जाते हैं. 2012 में आशा वर्कर पे आया था, 2013 में आई डोंट रिमेंबर, 13 नहीं था ना, लास्ट ईयर दे आस्क्ड on that integrated watershed development program under which ministry. So that would be a good thing अगर आप लोग फटाफट कर लेते हैं. So okay, let's move forward. अब let's see the external sector. So external sector में what we will talk about very broadly. Okay, we will talk about balance of payments. Then we will talk about the world economic outlook, and then we will talk WTO and India. I think these 2 things, this thing तो you already know. पहले का इशू है काफ़ी हो चुका है, सर्वे ने काफ़ी अच्छे से एक्सप्लेन किया है. I don't know how much it is important from prelims perspective, but definitely from mains perspective. I think this year also there was a question in mains on this WTO and India. That is the Bali, whatever happened in Bali. So there are 2 points with respect to this. One is trade facilitation agreement. Second is food procurement and stakeholding. that is food procurement and storage. So we will be dealing with this. I think I have got one slide where I will just broadly go through this topic. World Economic Outlook. Does this clicks anything? कुछ याद आ रहा है? Last year there was just a direct simple question कि who brings out with this? Okay, so these are like the small things that you need to pinpoint. ठीक है, तो सर्वे से ऐसे क्वेश्चन आते हैं. So एक बार अगर आपको पता चल गया कि किस टाइप से सामने वाला क्वेश्चन बनाता है, मतलब how UPSC is trying to ask question, then reading survey would become very easy. नहीं तो फिर it becomes very tedious to go all through all those data and statistics. Balance of payment again a very easy component. Simple है, divide करो, सारे के components देख लो कौन ऊपर है. Let's say balance of payment, how you would see current account, capital account. Current account में trade, balance of trade, then invisibles, service, transfer, remittances, income, interest. Capital account, FDI, FII, ECBs, NRI deposits, external assistant. Now if you want to go to trade, then here you could say what the percentage of import India does in the world, 2.5%. You could just note down the data, writing answer anywhere. I don't know, I don't think UPSC will ask question on these data facts, but just for your understanding, India's percentage of export in the world, 1.7%, 2013 data. Now this composition part is important. That could be anywhere asked by UPSC. I could find only POL for this. The survey just writes that capital goods and gold and silver. Maybe if you go to the appendix you would be able to find. For composition of export, manufactured goods nearly comes like 63%. Crude and petroleum products nearly comes to 20%. Agriculture and elite, no, it's not 30.7, it's 13.7. It's 13.7. And same year, the highest composition or is POL, that is petroleum and oil lubricants. Then capital goods we import a lot, gold and silver. Now these things tends to change. Gold and silver import, it reduced drastically in last year because of the measures taken by the government, because there was a huge CAD, then you need to lower the CAD. Again, from here you could find out that you could analyze, let's say if you have to lower the CAD, what can you do? You need to find elasticity. POL, inelastic, demand will be the same. Overnight, you can't say to someone that, okay, go take the metro. If you don't have a, let's say, metro in Mumbai, he will take his own car. Thereby, the requirement of petroleum, oil and lubricants, that would be inelastic only. So what you need to do, you need to reduce this gold and silver. How to reduce? Have a duty. Increase the custom duty. Okay, so this is what the government did. So you might be reading a lot, I think a year before in the newspaper, that the government increased the duty to this, the government increased the duty. So this was the whole idea. Why only this? Why not this? Why not this? Government can't decrease this. Capital goods, अगर capital goods नहीं आएंगे, ठीक है, तो industry कैसा function करेगी? In here also, let me just take one more topic in capital goods, which I think the survey talks about. Inverted duty structure. I don't know if I am spelling it correct. So I think it will come in the 6th chapter. I will explain it at that time. Okay, so this is like a broadly understanding of trade, import, export, how it is moving throughout. Currently the foreign trade, it's in a sluggish state because Europe में वो हो रहा है, मतलब Europe it's a decline. In the international market is also on a decline. Commodities price is declining.
Importing for by value or volume?
I think it should be by value. It should be by value.
We export crude also.
No, not crude, refined. Crude and petroleum, this should be crude and refined products. That should be refined products only. You know, this Reliance has got the biggest, largest refining machinery in the world. Okay, other than that, let's move to the previous slide. Okay, here I think you are able to understand. आपका पीछे ट्रेड था, वहाँ से आपका बैलेंस ऑफ ट्रेड आ गया. फिर एक इनविजिबल की कैटेगरी होती है. ट्रेड तो आपको दिखता है, इनविजिबल दिखता नहीं है भाई. सर्विस सेक्टर कितना आ रहा है जा रहा है, यहाँ से इसका बैलेंस आ जाएगा. ट्रांसफर पेमेंट्स, उसके बाद रेमिटेंसेस कितने आ रहे हैं, इनकम कितनी हो रही है, इंटरेस्ट कितना हो रहा है. इफ़ यू वांट टू सी दिस चार्ट, this is given in page 61. If you move to page 61, then you could very well see what are the positive aspects and what are the negative. See, export and import trade balance is negative. Page 61, table 4.4. फिर इनविजिबल्स में सी सर्विस इज पॉजिटिव. फिर करंट अकाउंट बैलेंस देखो आपका नेगेटिव आ रहा है. फिर कम टू द कैपिटल अकाउंट, एक्सटर्नल असिस्टेंस, ईसीबी, बैंकिंग कैपिटल, एनआरआई, डिपॉजिट. एंड सी जस्ट वन पॉइंट टू एलाबोरेट, आई डोंट नो हाउ मेनी ऑफ यू मिस इट. जो इंटरेस्ट पेमेंट्स होते हैं ऑन डेब्ट, दैट कम्स अंडर दिस करंट अकाउंट. जो लोन आप पे करोगे दैट विल कम अंडर कैपिटल अकाउंट, बट जो लोन का इंटरेस्ट दोगे दैट विल कम अंडर दिस इंटरेस्ट करंट अकाउंट. ठीक है, तो ये ध्यान रखना. तो यहाँ से फिर आप फॉरेक्स पे जा सकते हो कि भाई कितना फॉरेक्स इकट्ठा हो रहा है. वी आर मूविंग ऑन एन अपवर्ड स्केल, $328 बिलियन. नाउ एक ये भी डिबेट चलती है कि यार ये पैसे का क्या करें. So can anyone tell me, मतलब what is the use of forex reserve?
So like China, it is using its forex reserve for bank.
What?
It is depositing its forex reserves in a bank like AIIB.
But that is a very small amount. Very small amount.
But they will also have a cushion. Like,
but how much cushion do you need? No, this is like all liquid money you have which is lying unattended. So maybe just go home and search ki what could be done with respect to this forex reserve.
Unfortunately, was going dollar and he has paid through dollars, whatever we had, the foreign exchange, to regulate the depreciation value of rupee.
See, that is one thing now. ठीक है, market operations, but that is again only a very small amount. Okay, $328 billion is a huge amount. Okay, so this is just lying. So you could say one thing. Okay, see, world over, a trend that has been seen is that we tend to invest this, or maybe the banks tends to invest this with insurance. Insurance of whom? Ship, import and export, which carries huge value. But now government tends to say, or what Rangarajan says that, Raghuram Rajan says that we should not use it for direct insurance, but we should use it for refinancing. That is, there should be one layer between. You must have heard about the concept credit default swap, कि इसका जो प्रीमियम होगा ये इससे खरीद लेगा. It will act as an insurer to this firm, which would be insuring it in the very first place, which would be insuring the ships at the very first place, so that अगर शिप डूबती है तो गवर्नमेंट का पैसा नहीं डूबेगा.
sort of guarantee.
Sort of a guarantee. So maybe just go back and check ki what is the use of this money. Okay, this is a huge amount of money which is lying. Last year I think there was a question, I think in 2014 only, ki how is this forex reserve kept, let's say in foreign currencies or SDRs. So I think 2014 there was a question. Maybe go back and check. Then survey talks about direction of trade. What it means by direction of trade is that how we are diversifying with respect to imports and exports. So here you need to just know some things like with respect to import, China has got, we import like 11.3% of the total imports is from China. 8.1% Saudi Arabia, 6.5% United Arab Emirates. Same you could say with respect to exporting countries. This keeps on like of changing. For the 3-year aggregate survey talks about UAE 11.7%, USA 11.6%, Europe as a whole 19%. Here also what survey points out that India is trying to explore more new markets in Asia and Africa. Previously what used to happen is that the main exporter nations for India were used to be European Union and USA. Now since there is a sluggish demand in those economies, India is trying to diversify to Asian nations and African nations. And if you see percentage rise in exports to Asian and African nations, then that is very high. So this is what survey meant by direction of trades. Other than that, I think there is one more concept of external debt which we need to take in this chapter. External debt, I think every one of you know what is external debt. Okay, I don't need to go into that. I just wanted to bring one point, and this is how survey is important, is that you should know the total external debt, what is the percentage of public and private debt. Okay, this is an important point. 19.8.6. So it is mainly private debt. Short term, long term, total internal debt versus GDP ratio. Then see here, commercial borrowings has got the highest percentage. You must have read in the newspaper a lot of times ना कि ECB का percentage इस sector में इतना बढ़ा दिया, infrastructure sector में ECB का percentage इतना बढ़ा दिया, ठीक है? So this is how it goes through. NRI deposits, see the percentage of NRI deposits in the total debt, 23.8%. Multilateral, bilateral, IMF, these are the 3 institutions जिससे credit बहुत low rates में मिल जाता है, इसलिए we always tend to prefer, which is also of long term nature. Then the World Economic Outlook Project Report. So project report में 2-3 चीजें हैं जो कि we will just have a passing by reference कि what is the growth rate of the economy that the IMF is projecting. It said 3.3% for 14-15, 3.5 and 3.7. Why it has downgraded is because European economy are not performing well, but there is some positive signals which are coming out from the US economy. Then projections for India, this is something which is important. In 2015 it's projected 6.3, and 2016 it is projecting 6.5. That is surpassing China. China it is expecting something nearly 6.3 to 6.4 in 2016. Thereby I think you must have read a lot of articles also came in the newspaper whereby a lot of people are saying in 2016 we will be ahead of China. But see, that is just a misnomer with respect to the growth rate. With respect to the size of the economy, we are far behind. I think it will take 2 or 3 generations to reach to that level, and that too if the economy is doing well. Other than that, I think we need not go into any other topic. I think in this first, second, third and fourth chapter, I think most of the aspects I have covered with respect to whatever data could be incorporated and with respect to whatever concepts. ठीक है, इससे ज़्यादा I don't think आपको करने की ज़रूरत पड़ेगी. ज़्यादा कुछ नहीं यार उसमें. नहीं, FTP foreign trade policy 2012 only. Survey doesn't talk about it. 15.
So there is a box दिया हुआ है FTP. इसमें SMS और BK.
अच्छा. नहीं, I think that screen should be covering. I have covered them somewhere. That will be coming somewhere. I have covered that. Okay. After that, just 2 more points which the survey talks about. It talks about WTO negotiations in India. I think you know about this TFA. So did I need to go dwell onto this TFA की एक trade facilitation agreement in which transparency, simplification of custom procedures, use of electronic payment, ठीक है. This is mainly a demand by the developed nations because they need new market. Now this is a demand which is by the developing nations. Public stock holding for food security purpose. See, this is not banned. there's a lot of misinformation. That is what survey quotes. Survey says that there's a lot of misinformation which is there in the, let's say, economy or in the international market. There is no let's say, nothing in the WTO or agreement on agriculture which says that you can't stockhold food. You could have a lot of food, how much you want to stock, but what it has problem with is with respect to the administered price that we are giving. So what agreement on agriculture or WTO says that 1987, if I am correct, I don't remember the whole, I think this is the value and इससे आप एंकर करके 10% ही इंक्रीज कर सकते हैं, ठीक है, which is clearly logical. So India, it took a stand that whatever be the case, until and unless we have something on this, we won't move on this. ठीक है, that is what was the stand taken by India. Thereby, finally they moved, and I think they have 2 or 3 agreements that no one will challenge the public stockholding programs of developing country members for food security purpose. It will remain in place in perpetuity until a permanent solution. See, this is important. If there is a question in prelims, until a permanent solution regarding this issue has been agreed upon, and there was a commitment given to find a permanent solution of public stockholding for food security purpose by 31st December 2015. And thereby this summit, this is important, you should know that this summit is happening in Nairobi, Kenya. This summit becomes very important of WTO. So this is a whole gist of whatever is given in survey with respect to WTO and India's stand. If you want to go into more detail, you could read those chapters, read those pages 58, 59 and 60. Especially 4.24, 4.25 and 4.27. So let's come to the next topic then. I think this is a big topic. Price agriculture and food management. So I think there are 3 topics with respect to this. So this is the only one which I would be dealing in a bit detail. The rest of the topics, उसमें ज़्यादा कुछ है नहीं, वो आप खुद से भी कर सकते हो, नहीं भी करोगे तो जितना है उसके हिसाब से चलेगा. The price agriculture and food management, this I will deal a bit in detail. Then industrial, corporate and infrastructure performance. It's more of data, nothing much. Only we could talk about what is the sectoral developments. Then service sector, again nothing much, सब कुछ सही चल रहा है, क्यों कोई problem आएगी. उसके बाद then there are chapters 8 and 9, which again 8 climate change and sustainable development. We have got something, we will talk about it. Then 9 also some slides we could talk in a very broad sense. So first let's come and see this chapter, price agriculture and food management. So let's take an overview. I think you all know what is WPI. Primary articles, fuel and power, manufactured products, percentage. CPI, base year, 11, 12, food, beverages and tobacco, fuel and light, others. Then here also it defines core inflation. What is core inflation? Non-food, non-fuel inflation, which has a 42.9% component here. Other than that, you need to know one other fact is that services is included in CPI. Services has nothing to do with WPI. ठीक है, ये just I was trying to give you some basics. मतलब this is what UPSC maximum could ask with respect to this. So this time survey talks about something called as cost post inflation. Can any one of you explain what do you understand by this term?
Cost push inflation includes when the factors of production increases, like raw material or due to any factors that which rises in inflation. Like it's a Keynesian policy, like opposite to demand.
So there are 2 types of inflation. मतलब 2 ways inflation could be brought. One is demand pull. You must have read. Other is cost push inflation. So the survey, if you read, it talks about this cost plus inflation. You must have read, I think in last year, that the inflation rate is going very high. Okay. So what was the reason why inflation rate was high? It says it is cost plus inflation. How? There were supply constraints across various commodities. Okay, it led to inflation. Other than that, there were demand pressure exerted by high rate of growth of rural wages. You must have seen ना कि काफ़ी बार बोल रहे थे कि भाई प्रोटीन ज़्यादा खा रहे हैं लोग. प्रोटीन ज़्यादा जब ही खाएंगे जब पैसे होंगे. पैसे कहाँ से आए? उनकी वेजेस बढ़ गई. ठीक है. So that is why inflation rose in that phase. So this is what survey says कि it happened. Other than that, now what are the factors which are causing moderation in inflation? अब आपने देखा होगा कि कभी आपको न्यूज़पेपर में इन्फ्लेशन के बारे में सुनने को नहीं मिलता होगा, क्योंकि it is at a very moderated level. Thereby no one is talking about inflation now. Now what are the factors which led to moderation in inflation? The first and the biggest factor is decline in crude prices. अगर क्रूड में डिक्लाइन नहीं आता तो अभी तक वाट लग चुकी होती. ठीक है. So decline by like from 110 to 50-55 currently gave a huge relief, which not only led to decline in prices in commodity in India, but also global commodity prices, they were also decreased. ठीक है. Then टाइट मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी. लास्ट टाइम आपने देखा होगा जब इन्फ्लेशन काफ़ी आई था तो आरबीआई इट स्टार्टेड सकिंग द लिक्विडिटी आउट ऑफ द मार्केट, इंक्रीजिंग द पॉलिसी रेट्स. ठीक है. मॉडरेशन इन वेज रेट ग्रोथ. वेज रेट ग्रोथ पहले जितना चल रहा था बिकॉज ऑफ नरेगा एंड ऑल, ठीक है, वो कम हो गया. देन देयर इज अबंडेंट प्रोडक्शन. पिछले 2-3 साल में आपने देखा होगा कि प्रोडक्शन काफ़ी अच्छा हो रहा है, रुपी भी स्टेबल है. तो ऑल दिस फैक्टर्स सर्वे सेज लेड टू मॉडरेशन इन इन्फ्लेशन. नाउ फर्दर इट टॉक्स अबाउट समथिंग लाइक ग्लोबल इन्फ्लेशन. ठीक है, कि ग्लोबल कमोडिटी में प्राइसेस कम हो रही हैं. क्यों कम हो रही हैं? प्रोडक्शन तो उतना ही है, इकोनॉमी ग्रो नहीं कर रही, देयर डिमांड वीक है. बट हियर वन ऑफ द पॉइंट्स दैट सर्वे इज ट्राइंग टू मेक इज दैट इफ यू गो एंड रीड पेज 73, 5.10. ठीक है. Here the survey says that the difference between the domestic food and FAO food indices indicates that the domestic food market is not integrated with the international market. Are you getting? कि यहाँ on the basis of analysis of this data, survey is trying to point out that though let's say with respect to services we are integrated with the global economy, with respect to manufacturing we are integrated with the global economy, but with respect to agriculture and its products we are not related to the global economy. ठीक है. फिर यहां से ये एक प्रॉब्लम आपने आइडेंटिफाई की. Then we will come out कि what could be the solution. How could Indian agriculture market be integrated with the world market, which includes the benefits of the Indian farmers. ठीक है. अभी तक हम include क्यों नहीं किया? क्योंकि हम सोचते हैं कि once we tend to include agriculture in with the international market, there would be a lot of cheap agriculture products which would be coming into India. Thereby the Indian products, they would be going out of the market. ठीक है. Thereby we have a very ad hoc policy with respect to agriculture. आपने सुना होगा ना कि अचानक से बोलते हैं चलो इतने टन वीट ऑफलोड कर देते हैं एक्सटर्नल मार्केट में. फिर कभी ऑनियन और पोटैटोज के प्राइस बढ़ गए तो ऑनियन और पोटैटो बैन कर दिया. ठीक है. तो द गवर्नमेंट हैज नॉट अ वेरी लेट्स से ट्रांसपेरेंट और robust policy with respect to agriculture in India. It is mainly on an ad hoc basis and is mainly situation wise कि जैसे भी situation आती है it takes a decision. Let's say buffer stocks का level बहुत बढ़ गया. Wheat में buffer stocks का level currently is like 61. तो इतना बढ़ गया, क्या करें? चलो बाहर भेज देते हैं. तो ओपन मार्केट सेल कर दी और काफ़ी सारा एक्सपोर्ट कर दिया. तो दैट इज लाइक अ वेरी एडॉक पॉलिसी. सो देयर बाय हियर द सर्वे सेज दैट द गवर्नमेंट नीड्स टू कम आउट विद अ ट्रांसपेरेंट एंड रॉबस्ट ट्रेड पॉलिसी फॉर एग्रीकल्चर. ठीक है, तो इस टाइप से आप चीज़ों को रिलेट करके कुछ बनाने की कोशिश कर सकते हो सर्वे में. ज़्यादा कुछ बनाना थोड़ा मुश्किल है. इसके अलावा आई थिंक मेजर्स दैट द गवर्नमेंट शुड टेक विद रिस्पेक्ट टू द एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर. एपीएमसी रिफॉर्म, आई थिंक कल जो लेक्चर था इट वेरी वेल डेल्ट विद दिस एपीएमसी रिफॉर्म कि एपीएमसी रिफॉर्म में क्या होना चाहिए. देन ऑनियंस एंड पोटैटोज दे वेर बॉट अंडर द ईसीए एक्ट, एसेंशियल कमोडिटी एक्ट. द एसेंशियल कमोडिटी एक्ट इट गिव्स पावर्स टू सेंट्रल और बोथ सेंट्रल एंड स्टेट गवर्नमेंट. It gives power to both central and state government to do anything they could do with respect to preventing hoarding of onion and potatoes. Then moderation in increase in MSP. हमेशा क्या होता था कि गवर्नमेंट MSP अनाउंस करती थी, उसके ऊपर स्टेट 20 या 30% बोनस दे देती थी, तो प्राइसेस काफी इन्फ्लेट हो जाते थे. ठीक है, तो दिस टाइम द सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट वाज अ बिट स्ट्रिक्ट विद रिस्पेक्ट टू द बोनस दैट कुड बी गिवन बाय द स्टेट्स. So, for example, Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh, this is written in survey. Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh, they used to give bonus, a lot of bonus above MSP. So they said that if you give bonus above MSP, we won't procure much from your states. ठीक है? The government it believes in an open procurement policy. Sorry? हाँ, वो आगे आएगी. ठीक है, let's say an overview of agriculture, the share of agriculture in GDP. 12th 5-year plan में what is the target of agricultural growth? 4%. And what is ICOR for agriculture? Capital output ratio for agriculture? That is 4%. So that is thereby we say na that minimum 16% of investment is needed for getting this 4% growth. Then there is one thing which survey also talks about, which might be a question because this is fairly important. I think you all know the yield productivity is very wide. If you see with respect to states, in one state it is very high, other state it's very low. What is the reason for that? An inverse relationship has been noticed between increase in yield over time and average cost of production of various crops. ठीक है, what it says is that कि जैसे जैसे आपकी yield बढ़ती है, आपका average cost of production कम होता है. ठीक है, so इससे फिर एक policy measure क्या हमें मिल रहा है? हमें ये policy measure मिल रहा है कि we need to increase the yield of the produce. अगर हम yield बढ़ा देंगे तो cost of production कम हो जाएगा, thereby the profit that is accrued to the farmers will increase. ठीक है, thereby we are talking about second green revolution. ठीक है, what is second green revolution?
Organic.
नहीं, organic farming. Second green revolution is mainly dealt with respect to bringing the green revolution to the eastern side of India. And what do we mean by green revolution? What happened? Yield increases because of the inputs that we use. And inputs फिर inputs आप अलग से फिर जा सकते हैं कि क्या क्या input है. So here what are the schemes that survey talks about? So maybe please note down all the schemes and once you are back at home go through the schemes. कुछ पता नहीं चलता यूपीएससी का कब कौन सी स्कीम पूछ देती है. Just for a broad understanding, राष्ट्रीय कृषि विकास योजना, आई थिंक ये तो काफ़ी पुरानी स्कीम है, चले आ रही है. ठीक है, बट इट इज़ वन ऑफ द स्कीम्स जो काफ़ी अच्छी चल रही है, ऐसा बोलते हैं. ठीक है, इट्स मेन कंपोनेंट्स आर प्रोडक्शन ग्रोथ, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, सब स्कीम आउटले 18,000 करोड़. एक बार देख लेना. अगर आपको इसका डिटेल एनालिसिस चाहिए, गो टू प्लानिंग कमीशन डॉक्यूमेंट वॉल्यूम 2 फर्स्ट चैप्टर ऑन एग्रीकल्चर, वेरी वेल गिवन. RKVY इट्स कंपोनेंट्स, डेफिशिएंसी क्या क्या है और हमें कैसे कैसे इंप्रूव करना है. देन नेशनल फूड सिक्योरिटी मिशन. ठीक है, एक पुराना मिशन था वो अचीव हो गया, उसके बाद हम फिर नया एक और उसका सेकेंड वर्जन लेके आए, नेशनल फूड सिक्योरिटी मिशन. टारगेट क्या है? एडिशनल प्रोडक्शन ऑफ 25 मेट्रिक टन्स, सॉरी मिलियन टन्स. राइस 10, व्हीट 8, पल्सेस 4, सीरियल्स 3. ये कई बार पूछ लेते हैं यूपीएससी वाले कि भाई क्या क्या है इसमें बता दो कंपोनेंट. सो सीरियल्स इज समथिंग न्यू विच इज एडेड इन दिस स्कीम. इन द प्रीवियस स्कीम देयर वाज नो सीरियल्स. 50% will be given to pulses because you might be knowing that we import a lot of pulses. Okay, so thereby we had an scheme. I don't oils form something also form something. I don't remember the acronym, but there was a scheme especially for pulses. Then promotion of biofertilizers, that the government will give incentive from 100 rupees per hectare to 300 rupees per hectare. It has increased by 200 rupees. Just some facts. Then sustainability and adaptability. How? One is Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana. One is Neeranchal, that is watershed development. Just renaming the schemes of the UPA government. फिर एक नया ये हमने बनाया है नेशनल अडेप्टेशन फॉर क्लाइमेट चेंज सो दैट वी कुड शो टू द पीपल दैट हम कुछ कर रहे हैं क्लाइमेट के लिए बट 100 करोड़ रुपए में क्या होगा. एंड देन दिस सॉइल हेल्थ कार्ड इज वन ऑफ द स्कीम इज द गवर्नमेंट इज फोकसिंग ऑन अ लॉट. देयर वुड बी मोबाइल वैन्स सॉइल मोबाइल सॉइल हाँ सॉइल हेल्थ नहीं सॉइल हेल्थ कार्ड और वो मोबाइल वैन्स भी होंगे वेयर यू कुड मोबाइल वेयर यू कुड गो एंड चेक कि भाई क्या हो रहा है क्या नहीं हो रहा है. उसके लिए आपने 100 करोड़ रुपए दिए हैं. अदर देन दैट या श्योर. No need. In that planning commission document too, only read the analysis part. That is important. Okay, what are the deficiencies, challenges? I haven't seen your books. So let's, I think, move forward. Just let me tell one more thing. The survey talks about drivers of growth, which I have not taken here, so that it would have become too cumbersome. It talks about agriculture, research and education, which is an important driver for growth. It talks about agricultural extension, irrigation. Irrigation, there is a fact, just 35% of total arable area is being irrigated, and the distribution is also highly skewed among states. Then seeds, I think seeds, there was a question last year on prelims. Okay, so it is estimated that the quality of seed accounts for 20 to 25% of agricultural productivity. Thereby seeds becomes very important. Then fertilizers. ठीक है, fertilizer में दो important चीज़ है, please see to that. एक तो ये है कि जो हम NPS वो नई fertilizer scheme लेके आए थे, फिर एक अभी हम न्यू इन्वेस्टमेंट पॉलिसी लेके आए हैं ऑन यूरिया. उसके बाद एग्रीकल्चरल क्रेडिट पे मेंस पे क्वेश्चन आया था. ठीक है, उसमें आप नाबार्ड जरूर देख लीजिएगा एक बार कि नाबार्ड इट्स कंपोजिशन. ठीक है, आरबीआई के कितने स्टेक हैं, है नहीं है, गवर्नमेंट के स्टेक है नहीं है. नाबार्ड डायरेक्टली कंज्यूमर को लेंड करता है या फिर बैंक्स को लेंड करता है. ठीक है, तो नाबार्ड पे क्वेश्चन कई बार पूछ लेता है बिकॉज इट्स वन ऑफ द इम्पॉर्टेंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन विच डायरेक्ट्स क्रेडिट टू एग्रीकल्चर. देन मैकेनाइजेशन के 2-3 पॉइंट्स दिए हुए हैं. अगर आपको एग्रीकल्चर ऐसे पूरा डिटेल में पढ़ना है तो देन प्लीज गो टू प्लानिंग कमीशन. इट इज़ वेरी वेल गिवन. वॉल्यूम 2 चैप्टर 1, मे बी नॉट नाउ आफ्टर प्रीलिम्स. सो ऑल दिस टॉपिक्स दे आर वेरी वेल डेल्ट. अभी तो उसको पढ़ने की जरूरत नहीं है बिकॉज दे आर लाइक 70 पेजेस एंड काफ़ी टाइम लग जाएगा and not important from prelims perspective. ठीक है, तो I think schemes भी हो गई. So see, these are again the survey something talks about MSP, it talks about procurement, it talks about what are the buffer stocks, food subsidy को कैसे कम करें, and then reform कैसे लेके आ सकते हैं. सब कुछ सेम है. Just some points which might be important from prelims perspective. Survey says that we have MSP for 23 crops. Okay, so this is important. It is not only that we have MSP for wheat and rice because that is only in news prominently, but we have MSP for 23 crop. But effectively it operates in only wheat and rice area because that is what goes through PDS. So we need to do rationalization of MSP, and what is that? The Shanta Kumar committee recommendation, it talks about MSP, which is the organization which gives this number.
Agriculture Congress. Commission of Cost and
CACP. So this was a question I think in 2013 or 14. Who gives MSP? Then procurement, currently what we are saying that rather than having a centralized system of procurement, we should have a decentralized procurement system. कि मतलब पहले ऐसा होता है कि भाई एक गांव से एक सेंट्रलाइज एरिया में आएगा, फिर वापस बाजू वाले गांव में प्रोक्योर होके जाएगा, तो इट टेक्स अ लॉट ऑफ टाइम, इट टेक्स अ लॉट ऑफ कॉस्ट. देयरबाय वी आर सेइंग कि देयर शुड बी अ डिसेंट्रलाइज्ड प्रोक्योरमेंट सिस्टम. फिर हमने एक ऑनलाइन प्रोक्योरमेंट मॉनिटरिंग सिस्टम भी बनाया है. ठीक है, ये जो पहले बात मैंने आपको बताई थी एमएसपी पे. फिर बफर स्टॉक इज अगेन वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट बिकॉज यू माइट हैव हर्ड लॉट इन न्यूज़ दैट a lot of food grains they are just kept outside which is lying waste. ठीक है, so what is the importance of buffer stock or how buffer stock is leading to inflation? Last year you might have heard कि काफ़ी inflation बढ़ रहा है, but you have a lot of stock food grains available with the center. ठीक है, तो बफर स्टॉक करने से आपका जो इकोनॉमिक कॉस्ट है वो भी इंक्रीज हो जाता है. क्यों? क्योंकि पहले आप स्टॉक लोगे, फिर स्टॉक खरीदोगे, फिर उसको रखोगे, फिर उसको ट्रांसपोर्ट करोगे, thereby the whole cost increases. फूड सब्सिडी में आपका क्या है ऑब्जेक्टिव, क्या है? न्यूट्रिशनल सपोर्ट एंड प्राइस स्टेबिलिटी. इस बार द अमाउंट ऑफ फूड सब्सिडी इज इंक्रीजिंग ऑन एन ईयर टू ईयर बेसिस. हाउ मच इट इज नाउ? 1,07,823 crore. That is a 20% growth over the last year. This fact is important. ठीक है, if you see the quantum of food subsidy stable 5.9, page 87. ठीक है, तो दिस फैक्टर इज इंक्रीजिंग ऑन एन एनुअल बेसिस. ठीक है, उसके बाद फिर आई थिंक शांता कुमार कमेटी रिकमेंडेशंस, आई थिंक प्लीज गो बैक एंड रीड द रिकमेंडेशंस. दे आर इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर दिस ईयर because this is like the only committee on agriculture constituted by the government, and the committee gave a wide ranging reforms from how the FCI should do its operation, bonus should be given or not, what should be the role of MSP, how much percentage, like the Food Security Act talk about 67%, but the Shanta Kumar committee says that only 40% should be given. Then at what rate it should be given? Shanta committee, it says that it should be 50% of the MSP. ठीक है, so all these points I think आपको कहाँ पे मिलेंगे? I think सर्वे में ही page 86 it is given recommendations of the high level committee on restructuring FCI. So please just go through all those points. So it is wide encompassing all the issues from procurement to stock holding to buffer stocking to subsidy.
Is this Shanta Kumar?
Yeah, this is Shanta Kumar committee. Which one? हाँ 5.2 page 86. So moving forward, outlook and challenges, I think we dealt with that. Maybe you could write it better. One of the main challenges is that there is a wide difference in yields within states. Okay, so that needs to be curbed.
so that yield we need to study that, like it's given that the state has the highest yield in which crop.
No. Other than that, you know, currently you might have seen that 3 or 4 days before the government talked about a national market, the national online market, which will help in price discovery. So that is one significant reform that the government brought with respect to agricultural center. Okay, let's move to the next chapter. I think the next 2 chapters I would be dealing like very broadly and fast because nothing much in this too. Just something and something. What you need to know in the next chapter is one thing. What are the 8 core industries? Can anyone tell me?
Cement, fertilizer, natural gas, refinery.
Cement, fertilizer,
Natural gas,
natural gas, refinery,
coal,
coal,
petroleum,
नहीं refinery products.
Iron and
iron,
Steel. 8 हो गए. So just go through them because कभी भी UPSC ऐसे क्वेश्चन पूछ लेता है. फिर IIP, you need to know what are the percentage weight with respect to index of industrial production. Other than that, this is a general overview. I think I won't go through much of them. You might just, the PPT would be available, so you could just leave it through. So mining sector has turned positive. What are the initiatives taken by the new government? Ease of doing business, Make in India, the e-biz project, then skill development. So in skill development, please go through NSDC and Sector Skill Council. So this is given in page 91, box 6.1. Then streamlining environment and foreign clearances, labor sector reforms. See, now whatever we are talking about second generation of reforms. So you must be able to differentiate what were the first generation of reforms and second generation of reforms. Okay, first generation of reform were like opening a door, कि आपने इकोनॉमी को खोल दिया, liberalization, deregulation, ठीक है, आपने सब कर दिया. Now what is needed? Now the reforms. Why we call it second generation reforms? Because it is very close to the people. It affects the people. Let's say labor reforms, a very contentious issue. Land reforms, ठीक है. पहले you need executive acts कि भाई फटाफट सब खोल दिया. Now you need legislations to improve GST. ठीक है. Thereby they are very difficult to bring forward. The second generation of reforms, though they are building on the first generation of reforms, but it needs wide consensus and it needs a strength or determination on the part of the government to bring forward. So maybe just go and search this difference between the two, even not in prelims but mains, that could be asked. So initiatives to boost industrial growth, already seen. IIP, what is the trend? ठीक है. So IIP हो गया. Then IIP data आप देख सकते हैं. Nothing much to say about. The only thing is that the red circles, consumer goods and consumer durables, they are in the negative point. That is, they are not growing. Other than that, ISP based industrial performance. What are the reasons for low manufacturing growth? मतलब previously you might have seen that there are high rate of interest. There were a lot of infrastructural bottlenecks. Now, if you are trying to compare this position of India with respect to world manufacturing, then in the first quarter, world it was 3.4. In India, the manufacturing it increased by 3.9. But in the second quarter, there was something which we need to see why it was 0.4. So India, as we have already dealt before, it only accounts for 1.8% of the total world's manufacturing output. Okay, so what here it talks about is that the growth in the international economy, it was mainly electronics led. Okay, but that is not the same case with respect to India. Though India is a exporter of software, that is soft thing, but you won't see that a lot of manufacturing, electronic manufacturing going in India. Okay, so that is one of the main reasons the survey says that though manufacturing is growing throughout the world, but we are lacking. Thereby, government needs to bring some policy measure to increase the production of electrical machinery in India. So these are like power packed information at one place. Okay, so maybe we could skip this part. You could just go through them. हर एक सेक्टर का बता रखा है कौन कितना ग्रो किया, क्या हुआ. Not much important from prelims perspective. Mains का फिर भी पेपर 3 के टॉपिक्स जो हैं आप यहाँ से कवर कर सकते हैं. Same with respect to service sector, nothing much to talk about, nothing which is like very important or something. The first point is though very well taken. It is the second fastest growing sector. India is the second fastest service growing sector in the world after China. China is 10.7%, India is 8.7%. Other than that, the slides, they are just trying to give you an overview of the tourism sector, shipping sector, post services, IT and IT enabled services. Then R&D, real estate and housing, trade. Maybe the slide would be available with you, so you could just go through because there's no point me reading again and then doing this part. So let's come to the final two chapters which are a bit important, the climate change and sustainable development, and the last chapter is human development. So in the climate change chapter, we would be talking about 3 or 4 things. Okay, first we will be talking about what is happening in the global economics climate scenario, that how the states they are doing, and if there any particular event that survey talks about. Then we will talk about the IPCC report only from a limited perspective, whatever survey has given. After that, we will talk about what is the contribution by different countries to cumulative GDP, to cumulative global CO2 emissions. We will see which sector or which industry has the highest contribution. Then we will see what is India doing in this front. Then India's stand, then we'll talk about some mechanisms, and then I think the chapter would be done. So international policy agenda and development. So here the survey talks about 2 or 3 things कि आपको पता होना चाहिए क्या हो रहा है. So the course of international development and policy agenda for the global community for next 15 years is being decided in the year 2015. How? In the year 2000 we talked about MDG goals. ठीक है? From 2015 we will be talking about SDG goals. Okay, so thereby it is saying ki this is one of the major happening that would be taking place. Paris conference, 2 goals or expectation, they are important. The survey is just trying to bring to the fact that why the year 2015 is very important. ठीक है? We would be talking about what will be hoping post 2020, that what would be the mechanism with respect to climate change. So the deadline for the global agreement is December 2015. New post 2015 development agenda, SDG goals. ठीक है? Now what are the significant developments which would have an impact on Paris conference? You might have heard that there was an agreement between China and US. Okay, so that is an important agreement. Just maybe go back and see ki what are the 2 salient features. So one is that what US says that we will achieve an economic wide target of reducing emissions by 26 to 28% below its 2005 level in 2025, and to make best efforts to reduce its emission by 28%. This is given in page 120. Okay, page 120, section 8.3. Just read this section 8.3 and 8.4. You will get to know कि इसकी जो पूरी summary है. USA reducing their emissions target by 26 to 28% at 2005 level. And what China said, it just normally said that we would be peaking around like 2030, and then we will see what we will be doing. So see, what is the importance of this act is that ना कि ऐसा कई बार होता है ना कि 2 बड़े लोग आके डिसाइड करके चले जाते हैं, बाकी छोटे छोटे अपना खेलते रहते हैं, कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. So like this happened in with US and Soviet Union. They came and dealt with a treaty. उन्होंने कुछ treaty कर लिए, बाकी सब खेल रहे थे. Same is said with respect to what will happen in let's say internet or net neutrality. कि जो 2 बड़े players हैं, US, China, they will do something, and if India doesn't take a stand, तो कुछ नहीं हो पाया. तो the same thing is happening here, because US and China, they are the topmost emitter of CO2 gases. तो इन्होंने आके एक डील कर दी कि भैया हम ऐसा करेंगे. Now it brings a moral obligation on India to say something, to do something with respect to its CO2 emissions. ठीक है? So this will have an impact on the conference that is going to happen. Okay, so यहाँ से आप ये भी रिलेट कर सकते हो कि लीमा में क्या हुआ था. लीमा के जो आउटकम थे, 2-3 आउटकम थे. लीमा में जैसे हमने बात किया कि सब खुद से बताएंगे कि हमें कितना डिक्रीज करना है. ठीक है? फिर लीमा में हमने ये बोला कि जितना भी डिक्रीज करेंगे दैट शुड बी क्वांटिफाइबल. ठीक है? इट शुड बी क्वांटिफाइबल एंड मेजरेबल. ऐसा ना हो कि हमने कुछ बोल दिया और फिर वी आर नॉट क्वांटिफाइंग इट. उसके बाद सेकेंड पॉइंट इंपॉर्टेंट इज दैट व्हाट इज इट्स इम्प्लीकेशन फॉर इंडिया. ठीक है? तो इम्प्लीकेशन तो यही है कि इंडिया को एक मोरल ऑब्लिगेशन आ जाता है कि भाई हमें भी कुछ करना पड़ेगा. अब इंडिया ने उसके लिए क्या किया? इंडिया ने बोला कि वी विल हैव अ वॉलंटरी गोल ऑफ रिड्यूसिंग द एमिशन इंटेंसिटी ऑफ इट्स जीडीपी एक्सक्लूडिंग एमिशन फ्रॉम एग्रीकल्चर बाय 20-25% 2020 एज कंपेयर टू अ बेस ऑफ 2005। ठीक है, ये भी सर्वे में दिया हुआ है, मतलब एवरीथिंग इज फ्रॉम सर्वे ओनली। ठीक है, हमने डोमेस्टिक मेजर्स क्या क्या लिए, एक आपने ये पढ़ा होगा, पहले आया था मनमोहन सिंह गवर्नमेंट में, नेशनल एक्शन प्लान फॉर क्लाइमेट चेंज फ्रेमवर्क। इसके अंदर दे आर लाइक 8 मिशन। वाई दिस इज इम्पॉर्टेंट? 8 मिशन तो पहले थे। गवर्नमेंट इज ऑल्सो ब्रिंगिंग 3, दे आर थिंकिंग ऑफ ब्रिंगिंग 3 न्यू मिशन। सो प्लीज गो बैक एंड चेक व्हाट आर दिस 3 न्यू मिशन। ठीक है, अदर देन दैट जो नेशनल सोलर मिशन था, इसका टारगेट 5 फोल्ड हमने बढ़ा दिया है। 20 गीगावाट से हमने कर दिया 100 गीगावाट। क्लीन एनर्जी सेस, coal पे we have doubled to 100 rupees per ton. This amount is very significant. Clean energy cess per ton. How much?
It's 200 now.
नहीं, it should be 100 ना, 50 to 100 क्या होगा ना?
That is last in the interim budget 2014.
I think but the chapter ना 100 ही है ना, 50 to 100 है, that is what I remember, because the previous chapter ना, if you read the from carbon subsidy to carbon tax, so that is one of the chapters that you should read before prelims, that is a must. So the last 3 chapters of volume 1, they are very good, please go and read them. So in that it talks about this thing, and it talks about how much money we would be getting out of this, what India is doing, moving from a carbon subsidy regime to a carbon tax regime. वही जो मैं आपको बोल रहा था कि भाई एक्साइज ड्यूटी बढ़ा दी, अपना रेवेन्यू मोबिलाइज कर दिया, और इंटरनेशनल इकोनॉमी में हम बोल रहे हैं कि भाई देखो हमने ये किया है, हम सब्सिडी रिजाइम से अब टैक्स रिजाइम की तरफ चले गए हैं। ठीक है, और दिस इज ऑल्सो वन ऑफ द सिग्निफिकेंट स्टेप। आई थिंक आपने जहाँ एनवायरनमेंट पढ़ा होगा तो आपने डिफरेंस समझा होगा एडेप्टेशन और मिटिगेशन के बीच। ठीक है, whenever we are talking about adaptation, it is very important to recognize that what we are talking about technology transfer. ठीक है, तो टेक्नोलॉजी ट्रांसफर इज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कंपोनेंट ऑफ एडेप्टेशन। ठीक है, एंड देयरबाय वी कुड पुट प्रेशर ऑन द डेवलप्ड इकोनॉमीज बिकॉज दे हैव ऑल द टेक्नोलॉजीज। ठीक है, नाउ दिस इज अदर देन दैट व्हाट द आईपीसीसी assessment report says is that the there is a problem, ecological overshoot problem, you understand? Ecological overshoot problem, that is the ecological footprint being larger than the biocapacity of the population, is an important issue in the global climate discourse. एक ये कई बार बोलते हैं ना कि Earth could only regenerate a limited amount of what is being degenerated, and thereby at our consumption level that we are now, we will need 1.5 times of Earth to survive. This is known as ये ecological overshoot problem. तो यहाँ पे what IPCC for 5th assessment report talks is that, I think I would have what it talks is that ki if our aim is to limit the temperature increase below 2 degrees Celsius, okay, then the total amount of emission could only be 2900 gigatons. अगर हमारा एमिशन इतना रहा, ठीक है, या इससे कम रहा, तो जो टेम्परेचर इंक्रीज होगा वो 2 डिग्री से कम होगा, एंड दैट इज व्हाट इज अवर एम. नाउ व्हाट द असेसमेंट रिपोर्ट सेज इज दैट up till 2011 1100 1900 इतना हम ऑलरेडी यूज कर चुके हैं. ठीक है, तो टोटल कितना बचता है? 1000 गीगाटन. ठीक है, अब इकोनॉमिक सर्वे बोल रहा है कि हाउ टू डिस्ट्रीब्यूट this 1000 gigaton among nations. So what are the parameters on which it could be distributed? And that is the whole point of having this conference. दैट इज द होल पॉइंट ना, कि वहां पे कॉन्फ्रेंस में जाके आप क्या बोलेंगे, आप यही तो डिसाइड करेंगे कि कौन कितना एमिट करेगा, सो एज टू लिमिट देम। सो इतना आपके पास बचा है, अब आप सारे कंट्रीज आपस में बैठो और डिसाइड कर लो। देन हाउ टू मेक द डिसीजन ऑन सम प्रिंसिपल, जैसे उन्होंने एक प्रिंसिपल बोला CBDR होना चाहिए, ठीक है, एक प्रिंसिपल बोला इक्विटी होनी चाहिए, ठीक है। तो दिस आर सम ऑफ द प्रिंसिपल्स ऑन विच दिस शुड बी डिसाइडेड अमंग कंट्रीज। ये पूरी जो डील है उनका एक ओवरव्यू है। Other than that, you need to focus on the renewable energy sector, that what are the percentage contribution of renewable energy to the total energy। तो अगर आप देखो तो टोटल कंट्रीब्यूशन आई थिंक 12% है। 12% ऑफ द टोटल एनर्जी प्रोड्यूस्ड इन द कंट्री इज फ्रॉम रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी सेक्टर। और रिन्यूएबल पे हाईएस्ट किसका है? विंड इज द हाईएस्ट वन। उसके बाद there are only some of the statistics I could get. Solar is less than 1 or 1 point something percent. Biomass is 12%. Maybe go to the Ministry of Renewable and Ministry of Renewable Energy. There you will get the statistics. So just go through the statistics once. They're important. Other than that, what are we doing with respect to adaptation? Survey talks about previously we talked that we are creating an adaptation fund. 100 करोड़ रुपए हमने उस पे दिए हैं, ठीक है। फिर क्लाइमेट रेसिलिएंट एग्रीकल्चर सिस्टम्स, ये हम डेवलप करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। फिर नाबार्ड प्रोग्राम्स फाइनेंस कर रही है। अदर देन दैट देयर आर 2 स्कीम्स जिसमें हम काम कर रहे हैं। एक होता है ये पैट, परफॉर्म अचीव एंड ट्रेड। सेकेंड इज दिस renewable energy certificate, which are granted to companies which produces or uses solar energy. 1 REC is equals to 1 megawatt hour of electricity. They could be traded. So they could be traded under whom? This PAT. What PAT says is that the most energy consumptive industries, they have to source some percentage of their consumption from renewable sector, or they have to do some mitigation, that is they have to decrease their footprint, ठीक है। then how to decrease footprint? one way is या तो आप अपनी टेक्नोलॉजी इंप्रूव कर लो। अगर फिर भी आप टेक्नोलॉजी इंप्रूव नहीं कर पा रहे तो आप इनसे REC खरीद लो, ठीक है। so this is the mechanism। फिर फाइनेंशियल फ्लोज की बात होती है तो यहाँ पे 2-3 चीज़ें हैं। एक है ग्लोबल एनवायरनमेंट फैसिलिटी, फिर जहाँ पे इट हैज़ बीन सेड दैट हाँ दिस वन इज ग्लोबल एनवायरनमेंट फैसिलिटी। अगर आपने लास्ट ईयर का पेपर देखा होगा तो उसमें दिस वाज द ओनली क्वेश्चन, व्हाट डू यू अंडरस्टैंड बाय GEF। सिंपल ये क्वेश्चन था बस, ठीक है। तो दिस इज वेरी वेल गिवन इन पेज 125, 8.24. So please go through that. Then ग्रीन क्लाइमेट फंड की हम बात कर रहे हैं। दैट इज द डेवलप्ड और एडवांस इकोनॉमीज दे सेड कि हम $100 बिलियन का एक फंड बनाएंगे which could be used by the developing nations or the other nations for mitigation and adaptation. The last point is important in this context. India's nationally designed authority for the GCF is Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Other than that, the survey talks about India as a country and its contribution in the carbon market. How well India is performing in the carbon market. Then how can it contribute? It can contribute with respect to CDM, that is Clean Development Mechanism, or it can contribute with respect to carbon credit. So maybe please go through these 2 pages. They will let you understand this thing rather than me explaining the whole point. 128 and 129. ठीक है, आई थिंक अच्छे से आप लोगों को समझ में आ जाएगा। Other than that, India's stand on climate change issues, I think we already discussed this part. This is the same box. This is box 8.2. Please go through that. That is important. इसके बाद क्या बचता है? Then key लीमा outcomes box 8.1 कहीं और से आपको पढ़ने की ज़रूरत नहीं पड़ेगी. आप यहीं पे देख लो कि what were the outcomes of the Lima summit which happened last year. Then finally, what are the key initiatives taken by India? Swachh Bharat mission, Clean Ganga mission, scaling up of National Solar Mission, development of 100 smart cities with integrated policies for sustainable development. Then this last point is very important, National Air Quality Index and the National Air Quality Scheme. So please go through and see what are the components under this National Air Quality Index. ठीक है, कौन कौन सी गैसेस है जिनको हम मेजर कर रहे हैं. So that might be a potent question this time. And what is the color coding too? Color coding is also important. Okay, now let's come to the last chapter. I think we won't take more than 5 minutes. Just an overview, some data, some facts. Education, you all very well know, total literacy 73%, male literacy 18.9, female 64.6. But here one thing you need to notice is that the growth in female literacy is more than the growth in male literacy. So thereby there is a converging which is happening. So what is the significance? Is marked improvement female literacy. And what are the initiatives and the impact? RTN and Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan. You could also include Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. Okay, and this. Now what are the schemes of the government? Padhe Bharat, Badhe Bharat, midday meal, राष्ट्रीय माध्यमिक शिक्षा अभियान. वाई माध्यमिक शिक्षा अभियान कि भाई प्राइमरी एनरोलमेंट तो हो गया, अब सेकेंडरी के लिए कुछ करते हैं. फिर मॉडल स्कूल स्कीम. मॉडल स्कूल स्कीम इज मेनली विद रिस्पेक्ट टू बैकवर्ड रीजन्स और नक्सलाइट अफेक्टेड रीजन्स. देन साक्षात भारत एडल्ट एजुकेशन ठीक है. तो ये सारी स्कीम्स दी हुई हैं, आप देख लीजिए सर्वे में. फिर एम्प्लॉयमेंट और स्किल से रिलेटेड है कि भाई चैलेंजेस क्या क्या हैं और नीड क्या क्या है. सो आई डोंट थिंक आई नीड टू गो इनटू डिटेल्स ऑफ दिस. इन एनी केस आप वो चैप्टर पढ़ेंगे ही. अगर कोई इसमें स्कीम है, एक है गवर्नमेंट्स इनिशिएटिव अ डेडिकेटेड डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ स्किल डेवलपमेंट एंड एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप. दिस इज द डिपार्टमेंट, इवन अ मिनिस्ट्री इज क्रिएटेड. ठीक है, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ स्किल डेवलपमेंट, एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप, यूथ अफेयर्स एंड स्पोर्ट्स. ठीक है, उसके अंदर फिर हमने एक स्कीम लेके आए, दीनदयाल उपाध्याय ग्रामीण कौशल्य योजना, विच इज अ प्लेसमेंट लिंक्ड स्किल डेवलपमेंट स्कीम फॉर पुअर रूरल यूथ. देन देयर इज 3-4 न्यू टर्म्स दैट आर बीइंग कॉइन्ड. नई मंजिल, उस्ताद, नई रोशनी, मानस. व्हाट इज मानस? सॉरी, अच्छा, माइनॉरिटी. Please just go through them. हाँ? कौशल विकास. I don't think survey में दिया हुआ है. मतलब these are the schemes which are given in survey only. हाँ, प्रधानमंत्री कौशल विकास योजना. Okay. So maybe you could note it down with this one more scheme, प्रधानमंत्री कौशल विकास योजना. फिर लेबर में आई थिंक यू ऑल नो दैट देयर इज अ स्ट्रक्चरल एसिमेट्री. एग्रीकल्चर 50% है. सर्विस सेक्टर विच कंट्रीब्यूट्स हाईएस्ट टू द जीडीपी इज वन ऑफ द लोएस्ट एम्प्लॉयमेंट प्रोवाइडर. इफ यू टॉक अबाउट एम्प्लॉयमेंट इलास्टिसिटी, देन द एम्प्लॉयमेंट इलास्टिसिटी पोस्ट 2000 is very low, that is generally 0.2. What employment elasticity means is that with percentage growth in GDP, what is the percentage change in employment rate? ठीक है, which was nearly 2% before from 1990 to 2000, but after 2000 it has decreased to 0.2. thereby you must have heard the word jobless growth. ठीक है, सर्विस सेक्टर में ग्रोथ तो हो रही है, ग्रोथ सर्विस सेक्टर से आ रही है, लेकिन एम्प्लॉयमेंट जनरेट नहीं हो रही. फिर हेल्थ आई थिंक TFR, MDG आप लोगों को पता ही है, U5MR. also one thing with respect to health, just go through that report of this go through that global hunger index, all the international index that you know. Please go through them and find कि भाई क्या क्या होता है उसमें, क्या क्या होता है. जितने भी इंडेक्स हैं, क्या क्या हो गया, HDI, inequality adjusted HDI, gender development index, sorry human development index, फिर multi dimensional poverty, फिर gender inequality index. ease of doing business. Then फिर there's this hunger index. In this report of the government in this year, they have also talked about hidden hunger. So please go and see what do they mean by hidden hunger. That could be a potent question. ठीक है, अब important ये है ना कि ये सब का आपको component पता होना चाहिए. 3 component क्या है, जैसे global inequality index है, तो what are the 3 components that are calculated? Can anyone tell me?
Participation of women, reproductive.
So participation of women, reproductive health, empowerment, how? Percentage of women in parliament. So इस टाइप से अगर आप याद करने की कोशिश करोगे, और ये 7-8 इंडिकेटर्स हैं, हमेशा एक ना एक क्वेश्चन आ ही जाता है प्री में. सो प्लीज गो एंड गो थ्रू देम एंड सी. हेल्थ से रिलेटेड स्वच्छ भारत मिशन ग्रामीण देख लीजिएगा एक बार. उसके बाद नथिंग मच इज लेफ्ट. देन पॉवर्टी, वी ऑल नो पॉवर्टी, एंड आई थिंक ह्यूमन डेवलपमेंट. आई थिंक सम ऑफ द इंडेक्स दैट आई टेंड टू मेक, यू विल गेट द पीपीटी, मे बी यू कुड सी फॉर योरसेल्फ. एचडीआई क्या है, जेंडर इनइक्वालिटी इंडेक्स क्या है, जेंडर डेवलपमेंट इंडेक्स क्या है. Always tend to find if the international economy or in the international organizations came out with a new index. अगर ऐसा कुछ होता है तो जनरली यूपीएससी वाले पूछ लेते हैं. So अगर ऐसा आपको कुछ मिले तो वो जरूर करके जाइएगा. Then nothing much, the same old issues which tends to come cropping up कि women's family planning कैसी हो रही है, चाइल्ड सेक्स रेशियो कम है. सो चाइल्ड सेक्स रेशियो कम है तो उसके लिए हमने क्या स्कीम लेके आए. सो सम इनिशिएटिव्स विद रिस्पेक्ट टू वुमेन, इंक्लूसिव ग्रोथ. दिस स्कीम इज इम्पॉर्टेंट, प्लीज गो थ्रू दिस स्कीम. संसद आदर्श ग्राम योजना, JDY we already seen. Sansad Adarsh Gram Yojana is important. Then Van Bandhu Kalyan Yojana, survey talks about this scheme too. संसद आदर्श ग्राम योजना MPs के लिए है, ठीक है. इसमें और अंदर के कंपोनेंट है कि भाई जो राज्यसभा के MP हैं वो कौन से विलेजेस लेंगे, और जो नॉमिनेटेड MPs हैं उनका क्या होगा, ठीक है. तो जो थोड़े सेलिएंट फीचर्स हैं, जो थोड़े ट्रिकी होते हैं, वो पॉइंट आप देख लीजिएगा, ठीक है. थैंक यू.